something weird happened in 2014. Greg Lukianoff, my friend who runs the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, he noticed it too. He came to talk to me. Something had changed among the students. There was a new kind of a new morality driven by anxiety and fragility. And so we wrote an Atlantic article called The Coddling of the American Mind. We turned that into a book in 2017. We went much deeper. And in that book and in my early work, I thought we thought we had good evidence about the role of overprotection. So coddling means overprotection. And writing that book in 2017, we have a page where we say, the timing is right for social media. Like social media comes in just at the right time to maybe contribute, but we don't really have evidence, so that's it. That's all we said. That was 2017. By 2019, I'm collecting evidence because now it's clear it's not just America. What we're seeing first we saw it in all of the Anglosphere countries, is that when you look at levels of internalizing disorders, so this is very important, it's not all mental illnesses, it's not schizophrenia, it's internalizing disorders, which is preeminently anxiety and depression-related disorders. They're pretty stable from the late 90s all the way through 2010, 2011. There's really no trend in the United States or in the other English-speaking countries. And then all of a sudden, there's an elbow, like around 2012, 2013, there's an elbow, and the rates go up very sharply for girls with more of a curve for boys. And that's a clue. The different shape is an important clue. But for girls, 2011, 2012, no sign of a problem. 2014, 2015, it's off to the races with depression, anxiety. We see the same thing in self-harm. And it was when I realized that it wasn't just America. When I saw the same graphs in Canada, the UK, Australia, and more recently we looked all over Europe. We find it strongly in Northern Europe. That's when it became clear something big is happening to human children, at least in the West. We don't have good data from East Asia or the developing world, but all across the West, something terrible began happening around 2012, 2013. So that was the empirical puzzle that came to us as college professors and that came to us in the national data. And that's what launched me on this book.
Yeah, well, it's an important coda that you mentioned there, that it wasn't only rates of self-reported depression and anxiety, right? Because I know there was a criticism directed at your work by a psychiatrist who pointed out or claimed that the self-report data might be unreliable. For example, people can exaggerate their symptomatology. They can be trained to do that. They can do that to attract attention to themselves. There can be competition for psychopathology. That's part of the structure of a contagious psychological epidemic. But you pointed out quite rightly, I thought, that you saw the same data in episodes of self-harm, particularly among young women, which is a much more direct behavioral measure of that proclivity for negative emotion. And I should point out clinically, just for those who are watching and listening, that anxiety is a response to the threat of destruction, psychological or physical. Depression is more of a pain response, and it's got two aspects. It's heightening of negative emotion, withdrawal in particular, that causes cessation of activity, but also decrease in positive emotion, which is more associated with demoralization and lack of motivational impetus to move forward. And those are, you describe those as the internalizing disorders. That's not the same as the fragmentation that goes along with psychosis, or manic depressive disorder for that matter. This is quite a particularized, let's say, epidemic. And so, okay, so you laid out the data that this is occurring, and you noted that it was happening cross-culturally, so it wasn't something specific, let's say, to the United States. What drove you to the conclusion, or even to investigate the possibility, that this had something to do with technology generally and with social media more particularly?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So Jean Twenge was really the first person to call attention to this. Jean Twenge has been studying generations for 20 years. And she had an article in The Atlantic in 2017 where The Atlantic chose the title, "Have Smartphones Destroyed a Generation?" And so Jean laid out the evidence. It was all correlational, which doesn't prove it, but the patterns are so consistent. There's a correlation in time, which is when this new technology is introduced. Around 2012 is basically so. To back up, in 2010, teenagers almost all have a flip phone or a basic phone. The iPhone exists, but it's not very common. The front-facing camera comes out on the iPhone 4 in 2010. Instagram becomes super popular in 2012. So that's the period where teen social life is changing radically from using a phone to call your friend saying, hey, let's get together this afternoon, to spending all day swiping and scrolling and commenting and posting. 2010 to 2015 is the great rewiring of childhood. And the reason why we think that that is the major cause is because first, when we look at the historical pattern, it's a correlation. Lots of things happen in 2012. We can't prove that, oh, they get on social media and instantly the girls get depressed. That could be a coincidence. But because it happened the same way in so many countries, no one else has come up with an alternate theory. No one else has said, yeah, but here's something else that happened in all these countries that would plausibly make girls, and especially preteen girls, this is important. The increases we're talking about are generally between 50 and 100% increases in these measures of psychopathology. For preteen girls, you sometimes get 200% increases. And for self-harm, 10 to 14-year-old girls did not used to cut themselves. It was very, very rare before 2012. There you get over 200% increase in hospital visits for self-harm. So the historical correlation, it doesn't prove it, but there's no other alternative. And then you have the correlation in time use. That is, the people who are heavy users of social media in almost every study are doing much worse. And then you have experiments where when you get people off of social media for a couple of weeks, only if it's more than a week, this is important. Some studies make someone get off social media for a day or two. And if you're addicted to something and you're deprived of it for a day or two, you're not happier, you have withdrawal. But when it goes longer than a week, the vast majority of those studies find that people actually feel less anxious, they feel better. So a variety of kinds of evidence were coming in by the late 2010s, and this is all before COVID, coming in that it sure looks like it's the move onto smartphones with social media.